Once upon a time, in a peaceful little village, there lived a hard-working farmer who made his living through farming and raising livestock. He owned a loyal donkey, a faithful companion that had served him well for many years. In its youth, the donkey was strong and diligent, helping its owner transport crops, pull carts, and handle other heavy tasks. Thanks to the donkey, the farmer had enjoyed many prosperous days working his fields. However, as time passed, the donkey grew old and weak. Its steps became unsteady, its strength faded, and it could no longer bear the heavy burdens of labor. The farmer noticed this and realized that the donkey was no longer useful for his work. Though he felt some regret, he didn't have the heart to abandon the animal that had been with him for so many years. So instead of forcing it to continue working, he decided to let it roam freely, allowing it to spend the rest of its days grazing peacefully in the lush green fields. In the following days, the donkey enjoyed a leisurely life, no longer burdened by hard labor. It basked in the warm sunlight, nibbling on fresh grass underfoot. But fate had other plans. One day, as the sun cast its golden glow over the fields, the old donkey continued to enjoy its peaceful life. It strolled slowly, savoring the fresh grass, embracing the tranquility around it. But then, fate took an unexpected turn. While searching for the tastiest patch of grass, the donkey failed to notice the ground beneath its hooves. One misstep, and before it could even realize what was happening, it slipped and tumbled down into a deep, narrow well. Upon hitting the bottom, the donkey felt pain shoot through its body. Panic set in, its wide eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. It attempted to stand up and find a way out, but the well's walls were too steep and slippery. Every attempt only left it more exhausted. In its desperation, the donkey began to cry out loudly, hoping that someone would hear its cries for help. Its distressed brays echoed across the fields and eventually reached the nearby village. For nearly an hour, the donkey continued to call out. Finally, a passing neighbor heard the unusual sound. Curious and concerned, he followed the cries to their source. Peering into the well, he was startled to see the poor donkey trapped at the bottom. Its eyes filled with fear and despair. Without hesitation, he ran back to the village to alert the farmer. A rescue effort was quickly assembled, but no one could have predicted how things would unfold. Hearing that his donkey had fallen into a well, the farmer rushed to the scene with a group of villagers. They quickly gathered around the well, peering down at the trembling animal below. Its eyes were filled with fear and pleading for help. Determined to save the donkey, the farmer and the villagers tried using ropes to pull it up. But the donkey was too heavy, and the well's narrow walls made it nearly impossible. They also attempted to use long sticks to give it some support to climb out. But the donkey was too exhausted to help itself. Each failed attempt led to more pitiful cries from the donkey. As if it sensed that hope was slipping away, the villagers exchanged glances. Feeling helpless, they didn't want to abandon the poor animal, but rescuing it seemed nearly impossible. As the sun began to set, the farmer was torn between his emotions. He loved his donkey, but he also knew it was old and its chances of survival were slim. After much contemplation, he sighed deeply and turned to the villagers with a heavy heart. "We can't save it. Perhaps the kindest thing to do is to fill the well so it can pass away peacefully." Silence fell over the group. No one wanted to do it, but they understood that this might be the only option. The farmer took one last look at the donkey, his heart weighed down by sorrow. This animal had been his loyal companion for years, but now it was trapped at the bottom of a deep well with no way out. After multiple failed rescue attempts, he knew he had to make a difficult decision. With a mix of regret and acceptance, he slowly turned to the villagers and said, "We can't save it anymore. It's old. Perhaps the best thing is to fill the well so it doesn't suffer any longer." The villagers remained silent. They knew this was not an easy choice for the farmer, but they also saw no other solution. In the end, they nodded in agreement and picked up their shovels. Shovelful by shovelful, they began to throw dirt into the well. At first, the donkey panicked as it felt the cold earth piling onto its back. It cried out, its desperate brays echoing across the field. It couldn't believe its owner had chosen to bury it alive. But no matter how much the donkey screamed, the dirt kept coming. Slowly, the well began to fill, and with it, the donkey hope started to fade. The farmer couldn't bear to look anymore. He knew that soon it would all be over. At first, the donkey was consumed by fear as the dirt rained down upon it. It cried out in despair, believing that this was the end. But then, amidst its panic, a thought suddenly struck: it would not let itself be buried so easily. When the first layers of dirt fell, instead of letting them bury it, the donkey shook its body vigorously. Shaking off the dust, the dirt fell to the ground beneath it, forming a new foundation. The donkey then stepped up onto it, raising itself just a little higher. With each new load of dirt, the donkey did the same, shaking it off and stepping up. Slowly but surely, each shovelful of dirt was no longer a death sentence but a step toward freedom. The villagers kept shoveling, unaware of what was happening. It wasn't until the donkey cries suddenly stopped that they looked down in surprise. The farmer was astonished to see that the donkey wasn't being buried, it was climbing. Each layer of dirt they threw had become a stepping stone, helping it rise higher and higher. Finally, the donkey reached the edge of the well. With all its remaining strength, it leapt out. It had saved itself, defying the fate that was meant to bury it. Standing at the well's edge, its eyes gleamed with determination. It had done what no one thought was possible. It had escaped what seemed like certain doom. The villagers stood in stunned silence, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The farmer, too, was speechless. He had thought the donkey was useless, but it had proven him wrong. For years, it had served him without complaint, and now, in the face of death, it had refused to give up, using its struggle to rise above. No longer fearful, the donkey shook off the last bits of dirt clinging to its body and slowly walked away. It no longer belonged here. The farmer who once cherished it had turned his back, and the donkey knew it no longer needed anyone's pity. With steady steps, it left the familiar fields behind, heading toward a future where it could live freely and on its own terms. The farmer watched it go, his heart heavy with regret. He had underestimated the strength of his faithful companion. The lessons from the donkey story. This story is more than just a tale of survival. It holds powerful lessons about how to face adversity. At first, the donkey panicked as dirt was thrown on it, but instead of letting itself be buried, it turned its misfortune into an opportunity. By shaking off the dirt and stepping up, it used adversity as a stepping stone. This teaches us that when life throws difficulties our way, we can choose to be buried by them or use them to rise higher. Perseverance, resilience, and self-belief are the keys to overcoming hardships. Secondly, the story emphasizes the importance of self-reliance. The donkey didn't wait for someone else to save it, it found its own way out. In life, there will be times when we can't rely on others, and we must find the strength to stand up and carve our own path, no matter how difficult. Finally, the story reminds us of our own worth. The farmer believed the donkey was old and useless, but the donkey proved otherwise. We should never let others define our value. The biggest lesson? When life tries to bury you in challenges, don't let it. Shake it off, step up, and rise above, because sometimes the obstacles meant to bury you are actually your stepping stones to greatness.